Hello, lovely beings. It's JJ Rose. Hope you're doing wonderful. Well, I wanted to touch on something that I have been interested in and seeing, which is conspiracy theories and spirituality and how they interweave and overlap. So, first and foremost, I'm not here to say all conspiracy theories are fake. I'm also not here to say that they're all real either. I think that there's a lot of truth and a lot of lies out there. But the whole purpose of me really wanting to touch on this is I have found some absolutely wonderful podcasts and YouTubes out there that have talked about different conspiracy theories. And first of all, huge shout out to Theories of the Third Kind. I think they are absolutely wonderful. They do a ton of research about each individual conspiracy theory, and then they give you like the history of it, where it came from, and then they give you the different theories that are out there about it, and then they just kind of go into their own personal talk and thoughts. And the way that they do it and their friendship, it's just, it warms my heart. I really, really love them, and they do a ton of research. I've learned so many things about history actually from them. So huge shout out to them. Also, huge shout out to Hollow Sky. They're another podcast, kind of same setup as Theories of the Third Kind. They're two friends, and they basically do a whole bunch of research. But what's really cool about Hollow Sky is they kind of go in their own brains, like down their own kind of roads of what they think the different theories could be. And I just find that really fun. I find them really fun to listen to, and I really enjoy them. So if you want to check out their content, please do. I know they both have Patreons as well for extra special content, and I think that's awesome. Any way that I can give back and support people who have made wonderful content and have put their total back into making it, I want to give shout outs to. So with that, in listening to a lot of their different stuff, and plus just a lot of different stuff for years that's been out there, I keep seeing this thread of conspiracy theories and spirituality that start to overlap. And definitely in the past 5 years, it is hit real hard where we've seen spirituality and conspiracy theories overlap. But even before that, it was doing a bit of it. And this is what I find interesting. Typically, conspiracy theorists, they view an incident as too perfect not to be rigged, or not to have, a government agency or a corporation or people behind the scenes pulling strings in order to make whatever happened happen, right? And that's the way that they view it. So therefore, they come up with theories which are, oh, it must have been this shadow government or this government agency or this corporation or these people who are pulling the strings behind the scenes. In reality, what I'm seeing with a lot of these things are, in the various instances where, governments or people or corporations were not involved, is this was an example of spirit being perfect and helping with predestined events. Hear me out. So, when people start to have spiritual awakenings, one of the things that they typically get into are conspiracy theories, not only because they're interesting, but also because, I don't know, the two just kind of go hand in hand. I've seen really in the past 5 years more so, but even in the past, like even back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s, that was happening as well. And as much as, there definitely are alphabet agencies and governments and, probably corporations and groups of people doing things behind the scenes, they're human beings. And human beings aren't exactly the most predictable. Human beings are not always predictable. You can study and study and study them, and you think you know what they'll do, and 98% of them are going to do whatever you think they're going to do or how they're going to react. And then there's that rogue 2% that's going to go and do whatever. And when it comes to, large scale events being pre-planned, I don't necessarily buy it 100% that it always goes true to form. And, usually we'll hear about someone who was there, who saw it, who got a picture, which usually is what starts the whole it didn't go down the way that we're being told it went down. But a lot of times it's just spirit working so perfectly that people think, well, it's too perfect, it must be rigged. And in reality, you're seeing spirit in action. Spirit is perfect. It is beautiful. When things are predestined and predetermined to happen by spirit, they're going to happen one way or another. And sometimes human beings unknowingly are in there and they're pulling strings or making it happen. And a lot of times it's just they're bumbling around. And let's face it, a lot of, different government agencies are just really good at the spin that they're able to put on it. And unlike a lot of people, I am one of the rare people who will actually tell you I think it's a great thing that, we have intelligence agencies who aren't sharing with us every little thing that they're working on, because I think the average person would either go insane or we would never sleep again if we really, really knew what was out there. And actually, I do remember some years ago, there was a head of some department who came out and actually said, if you knew what I knew, you would never sleep. And this is why we do what we do, in order to keep you safe, so that you can have your standard of living, of what you pay taxes for, and live your happy lives while we're out there fighting the bad guys that you don't have to hear about at all. And for that, I thank our government agencies who do that, because that has to be a really hard job if you think about it. Some of these people are dealing with the absolute worst of humanity and people doing awful things. And then they have to come home and pretend either that they know absolutely nothing or they can't talk about it. And sometimes they can't even talk about it like with their coworkers. Just think about the hardship of that mentally. Like, we think we have mental stress issues. That's got to be rough. And in all honesty, I hope that the 3 and 5 letter agencies out there, I hope they get a good laugh at every once in a while of hearing the things that they've been accused of putting together or of having done, because some of it is kind of laughable. And not that I know everything about how government and these agencies work, but knowing enough that I do, and knowing how humans are unpredictable, I just know that a lot of these things aren't working out as perfectly as they do if it wasn't for some divine intervention. So the other part of conspiracy theories, and this is the part that makes me a little sad and the definite part that I want to address, is when people get really, really wrapped up in some of these conspiracy theories, they're in a constant state of agitation, anger, and fear. And what does fear do? Well, it opens you up for spiritual attack. And then we wonder why the guy is putting aluminum foil all over his windows and on his head so, that the voices won't talk to him. Well, it's because he's probably being spiritually attacked because he's living in absolute fear. And if you are spiritual and you know spirit and you are communing with spirit of the Most High, then you know better. You know better. This is an earthly physical body. Things can affect your physical body, of course, but they cannot affect your spirit. And anyone who tells you any differently, I got some words for. We are spirits having a human experience. We are not humans having a spiritual experience, okay? We are spirits having a human experience. So therefore, yes, there is physical stuff. Yes, obviously, if there's lead in the water, not good for our physical body. If you're taking, a medication, it can harm your body. It can also help certain things as well, but it's not going to scorch your soul. I was literally hearing things of churches telling people if you get the vaccine, you won't be able to pray anymore. Your soul immediately goes over to Satan. And what was the other one? Oh, you no longer have an aura. And I'm sitting there just thinking, I mean, wow, you want to talk about propaganda? I mean, that's one of the biggest ones that I've heard. And my question is why? And especially if you're coming from a point of you're a minister, you're a pastor, you're a priest, and you're literally telling people that something physical can affect the spirit? Oh, no, no, no. No, 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 no. Let's take a hard pass right there. So when it comes to different conspiracy theories, and like I said, I enjoy listening to some of these. I think they're fascinating. Not only are some of them extremely imaginative and they're just cool to think about, but some of them are really funny. And some of them also do tie in with parts of history that I find interesting. Especially, the stuff that went on in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. There was some really interesting stuff that just now is getting released, and we're actually hearing what really happened and the history on it. And it's fascinating to me to hear what actually happened. It's a part of our history. And I know that other countries are starting to release stuff too. And I find it wonderful and fascinating. I think history is something that we should all know and learn from so we can do better and not repeat it, especially the bad stuff. Okay, I'm getting off my soapbox. So, when it comes to conspiracy theories, and I have friends who are all over the map with this, right? The question I always ask myself is why? Why would a government, a group, a company, a person, an agency be doing this? What is the reward or what is the reason? And if it makes no sense or if it doesn't even have a reason and it's just, just cause, that doesn't work for me. I feel like anyone who is spending any kind of money, whether it's tax dollar money or whether it's their own private money, there needs to be a reason. And the reason has to be something that's either going to benefit them or benefit them in some way that's going to make enough of a difference for them to want to put in all that effort, right? Because you really think the government's going to, move an entire mountain in order to get 15 cents? That doesn't even make sense. Why? It's too much. So the next question that I ask is who has a vested interest in creating the narrative? Now, we all know about psyops, we all know about disinformation, and unfortunately nowadays disinformation comes from every different type of road. We used to think that disinformation came only from the quote unquote the government or the corporation or the entity that was doing it. Now, unfortunately, we have just regular old people who want to throw their hat in the ring, making up different theories and conspiracies, talking like they know something when they don't, just because. All the way from kids to just people who are bored and want to have something to say. And then we have these people who I don't even know what their interest is. It's like, in order for them to have something to say about it, they create fear, which in turn benefits them. Like I was mentioning with some of the church stuff on clearing up some misconceptions. Some of these churches were all out putting conspiracy theories out there in order to get people so fearful that they would give money to their church and flock to their church. That's not what church is supposed to be about, but okay. But thinking of that, if someone has a vested interest in creating the narrative, is it a psyop? Is it a red herring? Is it deflection? Or is it making something so laughable to the average person that the average person won't even spend time thinking about it because it sounds so absurd and ridiculous? Now, aliens is a great example of this. Back in the day, in the 40s and 50s, if you told someone you believed in aliens, most people would have laughed at you and called you a dummy. And look what happened in the past couple years. All of a sudden, the government's coming out saying, yeah, we got these things called UAPs. No, we don't know what they are. They're definitely not something human made. We can't explain them. Okay, bye. But for almost 70 years, or even more than that, even, the government's basically been sitting there laughing at people who would say that aliens exist or would bring it up. And, presidents would be asked questions and they just laugh and say, oh, if there are, no one told me. Yeah, they probably didn't tell you, to be honest. Or if they did, that's what you have to say because you have to keep it covered up. Because for whatever reason, there are different people and cultures that would literally flip out if they were told aliens actually exist because it punishes their fragile egos of thinking that they're it. Now, please remember that it wasn't all too long ago that people were literally burned at the stake or hung because they said that the earth revolved around the sun and not that everything revolved around earth. And this brings me into science. Science is wonderful. I believe in it wholeheartedly. And I definitely believe that a lot of times science is trying to prove what spirituality already knows exists. And that's okay. That's a-okay. There have been people doing spiritual work and things that scientists aren't able to understand or prove. And in some cases, scientists have been able to prove it, but because of who they're being paid by, they're not allowed to come out with the information. There is a wonderful documentary called Third Eye Spies that I highly recommend you look into if you think that the government has never spent any money on psychics or anything of that nature. I would definitely recommend that you watch that first and then make your opinions afterwards. And then if you still have questions and think, there's no way the government actually really paid money for that, I'd also like you to look into the Monroe documents published by the CIA, in which it basically says how many millions of dollars our government poured into researching astral projection, transcendental meditation, as well as psychics and energy healing. Now, just a couple other shout outs, just because I really, really enjoy them, and they've really paved paths for all of the spiritual community and the conspiracy theory community as well. There's Coast to Coast AM, which if you've ever had the chance to listen to it on a night drive, it's just wonderful. But they also have a ton of their episodes with Art Bell and George Norrie on YouTube now, and you can listen to those. Some of them are super fun and fascinating, and they just have a whole plethora of topics, and they really were like the first radio program to really allow people to come on with their experiences, not only with conspiracy theories, but also with paranormal stuff. And it's just awesome, and it's legend. And if you don't know about it, please listen to an episode or two. It's really, really cool. Another one is Linda Moulton Howe. And I mean, you've seen her probably if you watch anything on the History Channel or any different documentary, she's usually on there. But not only shout out to you, Linda, because you were a reporter and you really dug your heels in and for decades have taken on researching all these various different things that were not taken seriously really until the past 15, 20 years. And above and beyond that, just from a woman's standpoint, thank you for being a woman pioneer in this industry and really putting yourself out there with getting some stories and researching into things that people didn't even know were going on. There's also the Confessionals, which is a podcast. And I really enjoy that because he has different people come on and talk about their experiences. And for me, that's just super cool because you're hearing like average people. Yeah, some people on there are, known or famous or doing this, but just having like average people on with a place that they can talk about their experiences so that the rest of us who are out here with these different experiences, we don't feel so alone. And I really appreciate the time that Tony puts into it. I mean, the episodes that I've listened to, he's had like almost 2 hours where he's let people talk about all these different experiences in their life. And I just think that's so awesome. And I wish wonderful, happy things for all of these people. And like I said, if you get a chance, if you're into this kind of stuff, please look up Theories of the Third Kind, Holosky, The Confessionals. They're all podcasts. And of course, Coast to Coast AM, not only the radio station, but they do have some of their episodes on YouTube. They also have a website and a really cool little newsletter that you can get as well that kind of breaks down their episodes. And Linda Moulton Howe, and I know that she has a website as well, with tons of information out there. So, wishing you all the best. Hope that you guys are asking the big questions, why and who, whenever you're thinking about these things. May your day be blessed and your days be long.